Hey, what up, guys? Doing another What's Next. This is on former two-division world champion Carl Frampton. He's currently my number 4 featherweight in the world right now. That's 126 pounds. He last fought at the end of November when he took on little-known, undefeated Tyler McCreary, actually unknown Tyler McCreary. That was a fight that took place at a catch weight of like 128, 129, as Frampton was contemplating at the time moving up to 130. But we know for sure next that he is moving up to 130 and challenging for the world title, the WBO super featherweight title, against American Jamel Herring. That fight's going to take place in Ireland. Belfast was the last location they were talking about. That's Frampton's home country. So that fight should be happening for sure next for him. So, you know, we already know that's locked up. That's 99% locked up, going to be his next fight. So this top 10, or, you know, this what's next, I'm going to be looking at what he could do after Herring, and then it's not going to be at 126 where he's currently ranked. It's going to be at 130 pounds. I'm not moving him up to 130 till he officially fights at 130 pounds. You know, and see how he does, because he's never been there before, and I'm not sure he's going to stay there if he struggles, or especially if he loses. But you know, he's going in against Herring. Personally, I believe he loses that fight to Jamel Herring next, but I do believe he's fast. I think he's got the speed advantage and he's got the experience, but Herring is a good fighter who can box. He's a southpaw, and he's a lot bigger than Carl Frampton. He's definitely got the size advantage, so I give him the edge there. But you know, we're going to run him against the top 10 130 pounders if he pulls off the upset. So let's see what's next after Jamel Herring for Carl Frampton if he wins and becomes a 3-division world champion. So we start with number 1, and that's reigning WBC champion Miguel Berchelt. I definitely think this fight's possible because Berchelt's a world champion, you know, and number 1, and he's also with Top Rank. So it is possible, but Berchelt's facing Oscar Valdez next. So I believe Berchelt's going to whip Valdez's ass and knock him out. Is Frampton going to want to take the chance of facing Berchelt? I think he might, especially if he could get Berchelt to come to his country, because the thing is, Berchelt might be number 1, but Frampton's definitely the bigger name. And if he could get Berchelt to come to his home country like he's getting Herring to come to his home country, you know, that might give him some kind of motivation, advantage, and maybe even make people believe that he could win the fight. He is elusive. He is quick. So, you know, maybe he does, you know, he could pull it off against Berchelt, even though Berchelt's the bigger man. So that fight, a unification, definitely possible between Berchelt and Frampton if Frampton were to beat Herring. Number 2 is IBF champion Joseph Diaz. I don't see it. One, Diaz is with Golden Boy, and, you know, Frampton's with Top Rank and ESPN. So I don't see them locking up from that standpoint. But also Diaz, after his next fight, which should be a mandatory rematch with Tevin Farmer, he's likely going to be defending, you know, against Shavkat Rakhimov after that, if he's victorious. So, who's the mandatory number 1 contender in the IBF. So I don't see it. I'd like to see that fight, but I don't see him and Frampton locking horns after the Herring fight. Number 3 is Leo Santa Cruz, which would be a rubber match, a 3rd fight between the two. If there was one fight for him to cross the street for, Santa Cruz or Frampton, it would be this fight. Santa Cruz wants to bring Gervonta Davis down to 130 to fight. I'm not sure he's going to get that fight. I actually said that I believe he's not going to get that fight. So, you know, Santa Cruz can face whoever in his next bout, but I definitely think that him and Frampton could fight if Frampton pulls off the upset. I think the two sides could definitely come together and agree on a rubber match, you know, and it's a big enough fight, and they're fighting at 130 now, so I think they're, you know, both would be down to do it. So I definitely think this fight could be possible if Frampton pulls off the upset, and if Santa Cruz is still the world champion at 130. Next at number 4 is undefeated former featherweight champion Oscar Valdez. I'm not seeing it because Valdez next is facing Berchelt, and I think he's going to get his ass whipped against Berchelt. I think he's going to get his ass whipped. He's going to get knocked out. Now, the possibility that it could happen, of course, is if Valdez pulled off the upset over Berchelt. I think it'd be more likely that Valdez faces Frampton I mean, Frampton would face Valdez over if Burchelt beats Valdez, because Burchelt's a big super featherweight that's been there and, you know, could move up to lightweight. Valdez just barely moved up to 130. So if Valdez were to move up, you know, in only a second fight at 130 and upset Burchelt, and Frampton just moved up, I definitely think this fight could happen between those two. You know, they're both with top rank. It's an easy fight to make. The other option that it could happen is if Burchelt beats Valdez, moves on to something else, but beats him in a close decision. Then I think it's possible Valdez and Frampton could still lock horns if Frampton pulls off the upset over Herring. So those are the possibilities. Again, I don't think it's going to happen because personally, I think Valdez is going to get beat down, but you never know. Number 5 is WBA regular champion Rene Alvarado. I don't think him and Frampton lock horns. Alvarado's with Golden Boy. He's not a big name, even though he has a piece of secondary piece of the world title. I'm not seeing this one. Number 6 is veteran Mickey Roman. If Frampton pulls off the upset, I guess it's possible, but I think Frampton's looking at big fights. You know, I don't think Roman, being a lifelong 130-pounder, you know, he's a threat. He's somewhat of a name. He's a veteran, but is it a fight that Frampton would really need to take a risk on? I don't see it, but I mean, it could happen, but I don't see it. Number 7, Jamel Herring. Well, he's already fighting Jamel Herring. Could these two lock horns again? Well, I mean, if Frampton puts up a close fight and Herring wins, yeah. If Frampton puts up if he wins a close fight himself, though, or wins at all, I don't think he's going to have any interest in facing Herring again. Herring's a tough fight. I think it's going to be a tough fight. Even if Frampton pulls out the win, it's going to be a tough fight on him. And I don't think he's going to be looking at a rematch. Not at all. Unless what's his name? Herring gets an automatic rematch clause in contract, which I doubt because Herring's not the A side here. He's not the big name. So I doubt he's going to get an automatic rematch clause in a contract. So I would lean towards the no if Frampton wins, but if Herring pulls off a very close win, I think these two guys could fight each other again for sure, so we'll see. Number 8 is Tevin Farmer, the former IBF champion. Not seeing this one. Even if Farmer were to beat Joseph Diaz in the mandatory rematch, him and Frampton locking horns, I don't see it because Farmer already, you know, he's with Matchroom and Frampton is with ESPN Top Rank, and Frampton just has so many other better, you know, makeable fights and more believable that Frampton could win fights, you know. Going in against Farmer, that's going to be a tough one against the southpaw. I don't see him facing two good southpaws in a row because Herring's a good southpaw, so I'm not seeing it. Number 9 is a fight with Andrew Cancio, former champion. Absolutely, Cancio just signed with Top Rank. He's probably going to fight on one of these guys' undercards anyways in his next fight, and that'll be his debut, and then I think he's going to be wide open to facing whoever, you know, whoever's willing to fight. So I absolutely could see Frampton and Cancio locking horns at some point. I'm going to lean towards the less likely because Cancio's not a big name. I think Frampton will be looking for big names, but it definitely could happen. And then finally at number 10 in this weight class is a showdown with Joan O'Carroll. I could see it as a domestic rivalry, you know, because Carroll's from the same area. They're both in the United Kingdom, but I don't think it's going to happen because Carroll's not a big name worldwide, and he's also with Matchroom where Frampton's with Top Rank and ESPN, so I'm not seeing that one. But, you know, definitely could happen, but I'm not seeing it. Another option, that's it for the top 10 at 130, but another option would be a showdown with Shakur Stevenson, who could very well be at 130 at that point. Stevenson's going to be looking for a title shot. He's going to be debuting. According to him, he's moving up to 130 next. So he could move in straight to a final eliminator. Since he's a WBO champion at 126, he could move into straight up a final eliminator in the WBO in his first fight in his debut. And then if he wins, he could face the winner of Herring and Frampton. And they're both with Top Rank anyway, so it's an easier fight to make. Now, will Frampton want that fight? I think Frampton's confidence is going to be riding high. I think he'd be willing to face a guy like Stevenson. You know, maybe that wouldn't be his first choice, but I definitely think he could do it. So we just got to see what happens. But that's the what's next on former 2-division world champion Carl Frampton, my current number 4 featherweight in the world, and look forward to his 130-pound showdown for the WBO super featherweight title against American Jamel Herring. It should be good. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, been hit with the truth.